Grand Rising still. Part 3 to the, not obviously the previous two, that were concerned or focused upon in regards to Ark of the Moors, and the links and connections I've been making between that and birthright citizenship, and the implications of birthright citizenship. And I put a bit of detail onto it in terms of what it might look like and what it affords people. What it affords in terms of what? Right, in terms of like who gains access to birthright citizenship, who is affected by birthright citizenship. And in this post, I'm going to link it, whilst I still remember, to the Act of Settlement in 1704, which says something similar about who can get birthrights. That's mean what conditions you have to be in to receive it, and all the benefits that come with being born or getting a birthright citizenship in a country from which your parents do not originate from. I think I've explained that as simply as I can. So in this episode, I'm going to be just continuing along that theme in relation to the Act of Settlements, because there is no 14th Amendment in the UK under the UK rules, but there's been an Act of Settlement upon which the 1958 Nationalisation Act, or something along those lines, was created, or something just after the Second World War. The Nationalisation Act, or not the Race Relations Act, but it's definitely something to do with nationalisation, and that allowed for people from the Commonwealth or previous colonies under the jurisdiction of the British Empire to come and settle. There you go. On the Isles of Britain. And also, just to say that one of those groups is another group that later it was considered, or was considered even at that time, to be, or were later to be, emancipated in the 1800s, with the repeal of the abandonment of slavery. Even though they may have abandoned slavery and sort of declared slavery and it doesn't exist anymore, the rules were already in place for slavery to occur, i.e. the transportation of human beings, and to be treated as chattel, to be treated as commodities, to be treated as product, to be treated as slaves, and to be treated the legislation and the laws and the rules and the treaties had already been created. So just by them sort of announcing that slavery was over didn't mean that the practices stopped, and they have never stopped. But what they've done is tweak it to suit the demands of the various corporations that were set up initially by the English. As I say, the 1707 Act was to provide, Act of Settlement was to enable, and it was to outline also the obligations of people that weren't Indigenous but were considering themselves English, and England was founded in 927. So by the 1700s, which is about 700 years later or something. Yeah, that's right, something like that. Is that right? Or 300, something like that. By that time, the English were established insofar as sorting themselves out, setting up parliaments, setting up a governing structure, or taking over governance of previous structures before England was formed, to create a framework for them to create citizens, English citizens or Englishmen. And now, if you just to say that I watched a podcast yesterday. I listened to it actually. Andy the Gabby Cabby, he was talking about how it's come to his attention, and Rupert Lowe, and he was reporting on Rupert Lowe having a conversation when he was asked, Rupert Lowe was asked, do you think, therefore, that Prince Charles is not an white Englishman? He's not a white Englishman. Now, he didn't say yes, he didn't say no, but he did go on to sort of say that, recount, if you like, King Charles's heritage. And also Andy the Gabby Cabby went on to break down what the difference is between English and British, and what it means to be an English citizen in terms of parentage, going back 3 generations, including yourself. You're the first generation, and going back to your great-great-grandparents, to be able to show that both of those parents they had to be both English and to have been born on the islands. Okay? Now, in principle, he's right. Absolutely, he's right. In terms of that principle, but again, these are the rules that were created by Englishmen to decide what an Englishman is and was on these islands of Britain. Okay, so as time's gone on, as I say, the Act of Settlements went on to talk about how one of the things that it says, no Catholic is supposed to sit on the throne at all. In fact, they are not allowed to be in seats of power at all. That's what the Act of Settlement says. That's one of the things that it says. And it doesn't talk about birthright, but it does sort of say that, again, in terms of being an Englishman, the birthright to being an Englishman, both your parents, which sounds very much like, no, it's not actually, but anyway, which it does concur with what Priti Patel said quite a few years back now, when she was trying to deport all these Jamaicans that didn't have the paperwork necessary to prove that they are, I don't know, English, British citizen. So she was deporting them, and she was deporting some based upon their criminal activity, or using that as an excuse to deport them. But she had to bring them all back, which nobody else talks about. Nobody's really took a deep dive into, or even a sort of mild dive, shallow end dive into, to see what that was all about, why she had to bring them back. And also, what was it? Bring them back. There was an incident prior to that with Theresa May, and the government at the time destroying the Windrush documents, or hiding them, burning them, whatever it is that they do. Which is, again, when you look at history, there's been a lot of burnings and destroying of documentations that prove the identities, or proves land ownership. It proves who the founders are and who the settlers are, and makes that distinction. So the people, and as I highlighted in yesterday's post, UNDRIP lays out the responsibilities of Indigenous and Aboriginal people, and it also highlights the obligations of the state that is supposed to be administering resources to the Indigenous and Aboriginal. But what it's been doing these last few years in your face has been offering those rights and those meeting it's not been meeting its obligations to the Indigenous and Aboriginal, but it's been absolutely been giving those responsibilities not to Indigenous peoples, but facilitating them through foreign immigrants from another land, a different land of origin, and using and allowing, therefore, their children to be born, if they're born here. And there's something that Donald Trump signed up as an executive order that is signed, that what does it do? It does away with birthright citizenship, effectively, which has been resisted, but I think it's been going ahead anyway through ICE. That stops what's called birthright tourism. And what that means is that people have been coming on holidays to various Western countries, particularly the US and the UK, and whilst they're pregnant, saying that they're visiting family, giving birth. And I think this is what happened with Kemi Badenoch, actually, giving birth to children, which automatically gives them citizenship to the USA or to the UK. So he's done away with that, and that's why a lot of people are pissed off, because there are a lot of people, there are more people, that I think it's a multi-billion pound fraud that's taking place, and somebody's benefiting from it. So all the people that are coming in the boats at the moment, if each one of those had a child, each one of those, and you'll notice the population of children gone up, and you will also notice in the UK that they have changed the rules, or are about to change the rules if they've not done it already, so that in terms of how many children you can have before you receive what I used to be called family allowance back in my day, but child benefit. That's it, child benefit. You can get child benefit for all of your children, not just the one. So that's 13 minutes. Okay. So I just want, that's part 3 really of this hopefully quite short broadcast, and I'll see if I can put some stuff up to validate that. But all this stuff is findable. It's not, I'm not making it up. It's on the telly, talking about it in your face, but you're not telling you the implications of it. And actually the BBC aren't talking about it as much as, say, CNN and whatnot. And even Sky's mentioned it, because they now know and recognise what the implications are of people are sort of thinking in the UK and in the West that it's got no bearing over here, but it's got massive bearing over here, because what Trump's doing with the tariffs and by issuing these things, it's got implications for all those companies and organisations, H1B1 visas and all the rest of it. So people can't be talking about and complaining about immigration when they've set up a system which allows for mass migration and immigration into a country, and part of the plan is to repopulate these islands, it seems to me. But I'm not explaining that very well. Till the next time, may your ERP and your spirituality remain strong. I'm gone.